Nia Carter was halfway down the second-floor hallway when she heard her husband say her name behind the closed study door. He was speaking French. So was his mother. That was not unusual. Andrew Vale's family switched to French whenever they wanted a conversation to feel private. They had been doing it around Nia for almost 8 years. They believed she understood none of it. Andrew laughed quietly. She'll sign it without reading. Nia stopped walking. Her hand was still wrapped around the strap of her 5-year-old son's small blue backpack. Inside the study, Margaret Vale answered in the same smooth French she used with hotel investors from Paris and Montreal. Put the signature tab on page 7. Don't give her a reason to start asking questions. Andrew said, she never does. Nia did not breathe, not properly. She looked at the closed walnut door. A thin line of warm light showed beneath it. Margaret asked, and once the restructuring is finished? A pause. Then Andrew said, we wait until January for the separation? Yes. Nia's fingers tightened around the backpack strap. Margaret lowered her voice. The child? Micah stays here. Nia's body went completely still. Andrew continued. His school is here. His routine is here. The family is here. If she wants to fight about parenting time, she can explain why a woman with no current income thinks moving him out of this house is stability. Margaret gave a small, satisfied hum. She gave up work voluntarily. She wanted to stay home. Nia stared at the door. That was not true, not exactly. She had reduced her hours when Micah was born because Andrew traveled more than 200 nights during their son's first 3 years. Then, Vale Hospitality's expansion into Canada had doubled the number of dinners, charity events, and weekends Andrew expected her to attend beside him. Nia's part-time contract work had slowly become impossible. There had never been one conversation where Andrew said, quit your career. There had been 50 smaller conversations. Can you cover pickup today? Can you move that client call? Can you come to Montreal with me? My mother needs you at the foundation dinner. Micah has a fever. I have investors here. This quarter is insane. We'll figure out your work later. Later had lasted 4 years. Inside the study, Margaret said, and the acknowledgement language? Marcus says it's standard. Does she know it confirms she had the opportunity for independent counsel? Andrew laughed. She won't know what it confirms. Nia reached into the pocket of her cardigan. Her phone was there. For 1 second, she thought about recording. Then she stopped herself. She did not know the law. She did not know what she was allowed to record. She did not know what document they were discussing. And she did not know enough to turn fear into evidence yet. That mattered. Understanding French did not make her a lawyer, so she did the hardest thing she could think of. Nothing. She kept standing there, listening. Margaret said, you need the trust transaction completed before the Quebec financing closes. I know. If she refuses to sign, she won't. Andrew sounded almost bored. I'll tell her it's an estate planning update. She signed school forms without reading them. Insurance forms, foundation releases. She trusts me. Nia felt something colder than anger, because that part was true. She had trusted him. Margaret said, then tomorrow morning. Tomorrow morning, a chair moved. Nia stepped backward, quietly, once, twice. Then she turned and continued toward Micah's bedroom at the same pace she had been walking before. No running. No slammed door. No dramatic phone call. She entered her son's room, placed the backpack beside his desk, and looked at the construction paper solar system hanging over his bed. Micah had put Saturn too close to the sun. Nia had promised to help him fix it after dinner. She stared at the crooked yellow planet. Then she took out her phone. Not to call Andrew. Not to confront Margaret. She searched. Independent family law attorney, financial disclosure, New York. She read 3 names. Then 5. Then 10. She chose a woman whose biography did not promise to destroy anyone that mattered too. Rachel Levin, family law, high asset financial disclosure, parenting agreements. Nia sent one sentence through the contact form. I need advice before signing a financial document my husband plans to give me tomorrow. Then she put the phone away. Downstairs, Andrew called, Nia? Her face changed before she answered. Not into a smile, into the expression she had spent years using around the Vale family. Calm, pleasant, unreadable. Coming. At breakfast the next morning, the document was waiting beside her coffee. Andrew did not look nervous. That frightened her more than if he had. He wore a pale, blue dress shirt, with the sleeves rolled once at the wrist, and was reading email on his tablet while Micah pushed blueberries around a bowl of oatmeal. Margaret was not there. Andrew touched the folder. Need your signature on something before I leave. Nia poured milk into Micah's cup. What is it? Estate planning. Exactly. She sat down. Andrew continued scrolling. My mother's lawyers are cleaning up the family holding structure before the Quebec refinancing. It's mostly housekeeping. Nia opened the folder. 23 pages. A yellow signature tab marked page 7. She almost looked at Andrew. Almost. Instead, she read page 1. Andrew said, You don't need to go through all that. I know. She turned the page. But I'm awake. Micah laughed. Mommy is always awake. Nia smiled at him. Not always. Andrew watched her now. She read slowly. Not because the language was impossible, because legal documents rewarded patience. The first pages referred to Vale Family Holdings, LLC. Several subsidiaries, existing trusts, and a proposed restructuring. Nia recognized some company names. Others she did not. Page 6 referred to a spousal acknowledgement. Page 7 contained her signature block. Above it were several representations. She read them twice. One phrase mattered immediately. Acknowledges opportunity to obtain independent legal advice. Another. Acknowledges no claim or beneficial interest except as otherwise expressly provided. Nia did not know exactly what that meant, so she did not pretend she did. She closed the folder. Andrew looked relieved. Then she slid it back toward him. I'm going to have someone review it. His face changed, only slightly. Who? A lawyer, for an estate planning acknowledgement. Yes. Nia? What? This is routine. Good. She picked up her coffee. Then review should be easy. Andrew lowered the tablet. Why are you suddenly making this complicated? I'm not. You've signed things like this before. Maybe I should have reviewed those too. He stared at her. Micah looked between them. Nia immediately softened her voice. Finish your oatmeal, baby. Andrew waited until Micah turned back to the bowl. Then, did someone say something to you? Nia looked directly at him. About what? He held her gaze. She held it back. Andrew looked away first. Nothing. Nia stood. I'll send it back after review. I need it today. Then your lawyer waited too long. Nia. She picked up the folder. It has my name on it. He stood. It concerns my family's assets. Then why do you need my signature? Silence. There. The first real crack. Andrew answered too quickly. Technical requirement. Great. Nia tucked the folder beneath her arm. My lawyer can explain the technical requirement to me. His jaw tightened. You don't have a lawyer. I will. She kissed Micah on the head. Shows in 5 minutes. Then she walked out of the kitchen, carrying the document. Andrew did not stop her. At 9:14 that morning, Rachel Levin's office called. At 10:30, Nia sat across from her in a modest midtown conference room. No marble, no portraits, no dramatic skyline. Rachel was 52, wore reading glasses on a thin black chain, and had the habit of finishing an entire paragraph before reacting to it. Nia liked her immediately. Rachel reached page 7, then went back to page 4, then page 2. Who told you this was estate planning? My husband. Rachel made a note. That description is incomplete. Nia's stomach tightened. How incomplete? I need the underlying documents before I answer that rest. That sentence helped, not because it reassured her, because Rachel was willing to say she did not know. Nia had spent too much of her marriage around people who treated confidence like evidence. Rachel pointed to the document. This appears to be part of a restructuring involving interests held by the Vale family and entity connected to your husband. Your signature may simply be required to acknowledge certain classifications. May? Yes. Rachel looked at her. And it may have consequences for claims someone could later argue you waived or acknowledged. Nia swallowed. Would you sign it? No. The answer was immediate. Nia looked up. Rachel clarified. Not because I'm telling you the document is fraudulent. I'm telling you I would never advise a client to sign representations about property, rights, independent counsel, or beneficial interests until I knew what property we were talking about. Nia nodded slowly. Rachel tapped one line. This says you had an opportunity to receive independent advice. I'm receiving it now. Exactly. Rachel turned another page. This references an attached schedule. There wasn't one. Rachel looked at her. No schedule? No. That is a problem. What kind? The kind that means we ask for the schedule. Again, no theatrical declaration. No, your husband is stealing millions. Just ask for the missing information. Nia felt her breathing normalize. Rachel removed her glasses. Why did you come in before signing? There it was. Nia had rehearsed several answers. None felt good anymore. My husband and his mother were discussing it last night. They told you what it was? No, they didn't know I was listening. Rachel waited. They were speaking French. Rachel nodded. And? They think I don't understand French. A small pause. How much French do you understand? All of it. Rachel's eyebrows rose. Not dramatically, just enough, Nia continued. I lived in Montreal for 6 years. Rachel looked at her notes. Your husband doesn't know that? He knows I lived there. But not that you speak French. I never said I didn't. Rachel leaned back. That distinction seemed to matter to her. Nia continued. When we first started dating, his mother made a joke in French at dinner. Something about my dress. You understood. Yes. Did you respond? No. Why? I thought it would embarrass her. Rachel waited. Then they kept doing it. How long? Years. And you kept not responding. Yes. Why? That question was harder. Nia looked at the conference table. At first, because I didn't want to fight, she thought. Then because I wanted to know what they said when they thought I couldn't hear them. Rachel said nothing. Nia looked up. That sounds terrible when I say it out loud. No. Rachel shook her head. It sounds like information. The word landed differently than Nia expected. Rachel continued. What did you hear last night? Nia told her, not dramatically. Andrew saying she would sign without reading. The trust transaction. January. Separation. Micah. No current income. Independent counsel language. Rachel wrote for almost 2 minutes without interrupting. When Nia finished, Rachel put down the pen. Did you record it? No. Good. Nia blinked. Good? Not because recording would necessarily have been unlawful. I'm saying good because you did not make a legal assumption in a moment of panic. Nia almost laughed. I came close. Most people would. Rachel folded her hands. Here is what we know. Nia listened. You have a document your husband wants signed quickly. Yes. He gave you an incomplete description of it. Yes. There appears to be a missing schedule. Yes. You overheard him discussing separation after a financial restructuring. Yes. And discussing how your lack of current income might be used in a future parenting dispute. Chia's throat tightened at that one. Rachel noticed. None of that means he automatically gets what he wants. I know. Do you? Nia did not answer. Rachel continued. Being the parent who currently earns less does not make you disposable. Being the parent who stepped back from paid employment for childcare does not erase what happened inside the marriage. Nia stared at the folder. What do I do? Today, yes, you do not sign. Nia breathed out. We request the missing schedules and underlying transaction documents. Okay, we gather your own financial information. Okay, we make copies of every document you already have lawful access to. Okay, we do not hack accounts. I wouldn't. We do not remove corporate records you have no right to possess. Okay, we do not threaten anyone. Definitely not. And most importantly, Rachel waited until Nia looked at her. We do not turn one overheard conversation into facts we haven't verified. Nia thought of Andrew behind the door. Then page 7. Then Margaret saying she would never ask questions. Okay. Rachel nodded. Now we start asking them. Andrew called 6 times before lunch. Nia answered the 7th. Where are you? Out. With the document? Yes. Nia, I need that signature. You'll get an answer after my attorney receives the full schedule referenced on page 4. Silence. Then, what attorney? Rachel Levin. Another silence. Longer. Andrew's voice changed. Why did you hire a divorce lawyer? Nia looked out the taxi window. Why do you know she's a divorce lawyer? Nothing. Traffic moved. A horn sounded 2 cars behind them. Andrew finally said, I Googled her. So did I, Nia. What is going on? She almost told him. I heard you. Instead, I'm reading before I sign. He exhaled sharply. This is ridiculous. Then send the schedule. My lawyers will call yours. Perfect. She ended the call. Her hands were shaking. She had hoped they would not. They did anyway. Courage, Nia discovered, did not feel like calm. Sometimes it felt like shaking while refusing to move backward. That afternoon, Margaret arrived at the house without calling. Nia was helping Micah build a cardboard bridge across the living room rug. Margaret stood in the doorway wearing cream wool and an expression of controlled concern. Micah, darling, why don't you show Rosa your bridge? Micah looked at Nia. Nia smiled. Take it to the kitchen. I'll come see it in a minute. He carried the cardboard structure away. Margaret waited until he was gone. Then, what have you done? About what? Andrew says you hired an attorney. Yes. Margaret stared at her. For a signature. For advice. You have no idea how damaging this kind of paranoia can be. Nia almost smiled. There it was. Not, what questions do you have? Not, what did we fail to provide? Paranoia, Margaret continued. This family has supported you for years. Nia said nothing. You live in this house. Silence. Your son attends one of the best schools in Manhattan. Still nothing. Andrew has never denied you anything. Nia looked at her. He denied me the schedule. Margaret's face tightened. Excuse me? The document references a schedule. It wasn't attached. Margaret recovered quickly. Administrative oversight. Great. Then why involve lawyers? Because the document says I had the opportunity to. Margaret stared at her. Nia wondered if she could hear the exact words she had spoken the previous night. Independent counsel. She'll sign it without reading. Margaret switched to French, not consciously. That was the interesting part. It came out the way people return to a habit under stress. She's becoming difficult. Nia's heart struck once against her ribs. Andrew was standing behind his mother. Nia had not heard him enter. He answered in French. Don't argue with her. Margaret kept looking directly at Nia. She doesn't even understand what we're saying. Andrew said, I know. Nia looked at her husband. 8 years, thousands of dinners, Christmases, flights, hotel openings, family brunches, French conversations moving around her like she was a lamp. Andrew met her eyes, then said in French, just let the lawyers handle it. She'll get tired. Nia put both hands lightly on the back of a dining chair, and for the first time in 8 years, she answered him in French. Her accent was not Parisian, it was Montreal. Clean, natural, unmistakable. I'm not tired, Andrew. Neither of them moved. Margaret's face emptied. Andrew stared at Nia as if the room had changed shape around him. Nia continued in French. And I understood what you said behind the study door. Andrew's mouth opened. No words came. Nia looked at Margaret. I understood you too. The silence that followed was not satisfying. Not yet. There was too much still unresolved. The document, the trust, the separation. Micah, money, 8 years of assumptions. Nia switched back to English. My lawyer will speak to yours. Andrew finally found his voice. You speak French? Nia looked at him. That's the question you want to ask? Nia. No. She shook her head. The question you should be asking is why you needed me not to read page 7. Andrew's face changed. Not guilt. Calculation. That told her more than an apology would have. Margaret stepped forward. You have no idea what you're accusing this family of. I haven't accused you of anything. Nia remained calm. I'm asking for the documents. You were listening outside a private conversation. You were discussing my signature. That does not give you the right, Andrew interrupted. Mother. Margaret stopped. He looked at Nia. For the first time, he looked uncertain. Let's talk privately. We are, without lawyers. No. His jaw tightened. Nia, I'm your husband. She held his gaze. That was true last night, too. Micah came running back from the kitchen carrying the cardboard bridge. Mommy, it fell. Nia immediately knelt. Okay. He handed it to her. One side had collapsed. She turned it over. See this? Micah nodded. This piece is carrying too much. Can we fix it? Nia looked up. Andrew and Margaret were still standing there. Then she looked back at her son. Yes. She adjusted the cardboard support. But first we figure out what it's actually holding. Rachel Levin's first letter went out at 2:17 that afternoon. It was 4 pages long. Nia understood perhaps half of it. That was comforting. The letter did not accuse Andrew of hiding money. It did not accuse Margaret of fraud. It did not mention the French conversation. It asked questions. What transaction required Nia's acknowledgement? What interests were being transferred? What schedule had been omitted from the copy given to her? What rights, if any, would the acknowledgement affect? What entities were included? Why was Nia's signature required if, as Andrew had told her, the transaction concerned only Vale family assets? And most importantly, please provide the complete document set before requesting execution. Andrew's lawyer responded 93 minutes later. Not Andrew, his lawyer, Marcus Hale, Hale Weston LLP. The email was polite, almost aggressively polite. The omitted schedule, he wrote, had been an administrative oversight. The acknowledgement was routine. The restructuring concerned interests Andrew had received through his family before and during the marriage. No adverse inference should be drawn from the request. Rachel forwarded the response to Nia with one sentence. Routine things can still deserve reading. The missing schedule arrived at 6:42. Nia opened it at the dining room table after Micah went upstairs for his bath. Andrew was in the study. The door was closed now, fully, no light underneath, no voices escaping. The schedule contained 11 entities. Some Nia recognized from annual foundation dinners: Vale Hospitality Management, Vale Urban Development, Vale North America Holdings. Others she had never heard of: a Canadian partnership, 2 Delaware LLCs, a family investment vehicle, and one line that made no sense to her: VH Growth Participation Trust, beneficial Class B interests. Nia read it 3 times, then called Rachel. What is a beneficial Class B interest? I don't know yet. You're a lawyer, yes. You keep saying that. Because people get into trouble when lawyers stop saying it. Nia smiled despite herself. Rachel continued. The label could mean several things. I need the trust instrument. Can we ask for it? We already did. Nia looked toward the closed study door. What if they say no? Then we ask why your signature is necessary for something they won't let you review. That answer made the problem smaller. Not easy. Smaller. Nia had spent the previous 12 hours imagining an enormous hidden system already moving against her. Rachel kept reducing everything into steps. Document, question, answer, verify. Next question. Nia began to understand why panic was useful to people who wanted fast signatures. Panic made every problem arrive at once. Procedure forced problems to stand in line. Andrew came into the dining room at 7. He had changed into a dark sweater. No jacket, no tie. He looked almost like the man Nia had married. That made it worse. He sat across from her. Can we talk? Yes, without recording me. Nia looked at him. I'm not recording you. He studied her face. You expect me to believe that? I believed you when you called page 7 estate planning. He looked away. Fair. For a moment, neither spoke. Then Andrew said, the document does involve estate planning. Rachel says that description is incomplete. Of course she does. She's a divorce lawyer. You knew that very quickly. His jaw tightened. I told you. I searched her. Why? Because my wife suddenly hired a family law attorney after 8 years of marriage. Nia folded her hands. Why were you planning a separation after January? Andrew did not move. There was no point pretending now. He knew she understood. She knew what she had heard. He stared at the table. Finally, things haven't been good. That wasn't my question. I've been thinking about it for months. With your mother. Yes, with lawyers. He hesitated. Yes. Without me. How exactly do you propose someone plan a separation with the person they're separating from? Nia absorbed the sentence. It was reasonable on the surface. That was Andrew's gift. He could put something cruel inside a sentence that sounded practical. She said, "You can plan to leave me without telling me." Yes. You cannot ask me to sign a financial acknowledgement while deliberately giving me a false explanation of why you need it. His expression hardened. I did not give you a false explanation. You said estate planning. It is part of an estate restructuring. And the trust? What about it? What is the VH Growth Participation Trust? Andrew was silent for half a second too long. Nia noticed. Andrew? It's a family incentive vehicle. For who? Executives. You? Yes. How much? He leaned back. There it is. What? The number. Nia stared. He gave a humorless laugh. The minute a divorce lawyer enters the room, suddenly everything is how much. No? Yes, I asked what I was being asked to acknowledge. You're asking about my compensation. I'm asking because your lawyer sent me a document saying I may have no beneficial claim to something I had never been told existed. It's not yours. Nia said nothing. Andrew continued. It came from my family. Then why do you need my signature? Again, that question. The one nobody seemed able to answer cleanly. Andrew stood. Because lenders want clean acknowledgments. Which lenders? He rubbed his forehead. Nia, which lenders? The Quebec facility. And what are they lending against? Corporate assets. Then why does your wife need to sign? He stopped. Nia could see anger arriving. Not explosive anger. Andrew rarely exploded. His anger became precision. You have spent one day with a divorce lawyer, and suddenly you think you understand structured finance. No, then stop cross-examining me. I don't understand structured finance. She kept her voice level. That's why I'm not signing. Andrew stared at her. The answer frustrated him because it left nothing to attack. She was not claiming expertise. She was refusing to pretend she had it. He sat down again. Nia, the trust is separate property. Okay. It was created by my mother. Okay. My interests vest based on company performance. Okay, they are not marital assets. I don't know that. You don't have to know. That is what the lawyers are for. Exactly. Silence. Andrew almost smiled, not because anything was funny, because he had walked into his own argument. Nia said, Rachel will review it. His face closed again. The Quebec financing has a deadline. That isn't my deadline. It affects thousands of employees. Nia looked at him. There it was, a much larger weight placed onto her signature. Thousands of jobs, a major transaction, family legacy. As if asking questions threatened all of it. She said, if thousands of jobs depend on me signing something I don't understand by tomorrow morning, somebody planned badly. Andrew pushed his chair back. You sound like her. Who? Your lawyer. Maybe she makes sense. He stood. I am not doing this tonight. Okay. He walked toward the study. Nia called after him. Andrew. He stopped. She did not ask him to stay. She asked, when were you going to tell me you wanted a divorce? His back remained toward her. After the financing. Why after? He turned. Because I didn't want personal chaos interfering with the business. Nia stared at him. 8 years of marriage reduced to a sequencing problem. Transaction first, wife second. He seemed to hear himself. His expression shifted, just slightly. Nia, that came out wrong. No. She shook her head. I think that one came out exactly right. He left. The trust instrument arrived the next morning. 412 pages. Rachel did not read it alone. She brought in a lawyer from her firm named Daniel Cho, who handled complex marital property tracing. Daniel was 41, spoke quietly, and carried 3 highlighters he used with disturbing seriousness. Nia sat through the first meeting mostly listening. Daniel explained that Andrew's family ownership was complicated, but not inherently suspicious. Family businesses often use trusts. Executive participation structures were normal. Separate property could remain separate. Assets received by gift or inheritance were often treated differently from marital earnings. Growth in value could become complicated depending on facts, contributions, and jurisdiction. Nia interrupted. So is Andrew right? Daniel looked at her. About what? That I don't own it. I cannot answer that from a trust document alone. Nia nearly laughed. Rachel had infected him too. Daniel continued. What I can tell you is that your acknowledgement is broader than I would be comfortable with. Why? He turned to page 186. The lender wants confirmation that no spouse later claims an undisclosed interest that could interfere with pledged rights. That sounds reasonable. It can be. He highlighted another paragraph. But your acknowledgement does more than confirm awareness of the pledge. Rachel slid the page toward Nia. This language could later be used to argue you acknowledged the character of multiple interests listed on the schedule. Nia looked at the paragraph. So if I sign? Daniel lifted a hand. Careful. She stopped. He nodded approvingly. If you sign, it does not automatically mean every future argument disappears. Okay. But it creates a document someone may later use as evidence that you knowingly acknowledged certain classifications. And I wasn't knowingly doing that. Correct. Rachel added, especially if you were told this was simply an estate planning update. Nia felt cold again. Not because they had discovered a crime. Because the problem was smaller and more believable. Andrew did not need an elaborate secret scheme. He needed a signature that would make a future argument easier. A sentence she might never remember signing. Daniel said, there is another issue. Nia looked up. What? The Class B growth interests. He tapped the schedule. These were granted during the marriage. Andrew had told her they came from his family. Daniel continued. That does not by itself determine how they should be treated. But the grant dates matter. Rachel asked, compensation? Possibly. Daniel turned to another section. The vesting is tied partly to continued service. Nia stared. What does that mean? It means I want the award agreements. Rachel was already writing. Nia said, and if they refuse? Daniel smiled slightly. Then we ask why. By Friday, Andrew's legal team had become less polite. Marcus Hale wrote that Nia's counsel was unnecessarily delaying a time-sensitive commercial transaction. Rachel responded with one paragraph. Ms. Carter is not delaying the transition. She is declining to make representations regarding documents your client has not fully disclosed to her. Please provide the requested award agreements and any prior spousal acknowledgments. Andrew forwarded the email to Nia. Above it, he wrote, do you understand what this is doing? Nia typed, yes, it is asking for documents. She deleted the sentence, too sharp, then wrote, Rachel will handle document questions with Marcus. I don't think you and I should negotiate this directly. Andrew called immediately. Nia did not answer. He called again. She let it ring. A third time, she answered, Hi, you need to tell her to stop. No. Nia. Andrew, I am not discussing the document without counsel. This is our marriage. No. Her voice surprised even her. "This part is your financing." He went silent. She continued, "Our marriage is the part where you planned a separation and custody strategy without telling me. Stop calling it a strategy. What would you call it? A conversation. With lawyers involved. My mother had questions. About taking Micah from me. Nobody is taking Micah. I heard you. You heard part of a conversation. In a language you thought I couldn't understand. That has nothing to do with Micah. It has everything to do with why you thought you could speak freely." Andrew's breathing changed. Then he said, "You have been lying to me for 8 years." Nia stopped. There it was. She had wondered when he would find that argument. "About what?" "French. I never told you I didn't speak French." "Come on, I didn't. You let us believe it." "Yes, that is lying." Nia looked out the kitchen window. Rain had started. Small drops against the glass. She said, "The first time your mother insulted me in French, I stayed quiet because I didn't want to embarrass her." Andrew said nothing. "The second time I stayed quiet because I wanted to see whether you would say anything." Still nothing. "You didn't." "Nia?" "The third time I stayed quiet because I realized both of you were different when you thought I couldn't understand." "That is manipulative." "Maybe." She accepted the word. Andrew had not expected that, Nia continued. "But I never used French to make you sign anything." Silence. He ended the call. That evening, Margaret came again. This time, Nia did not invite her inside. They stood in the foyer. Margaret looked past Nia toward the stairs. "Where is Micah?" "With Rosa." "I'd like to see him. You can after we talk." Margaret's eyes narrowed. "You are restricting access to my grandson?" No. Nia opened the door wider. "I'm asking you not to use him to avoid this conversation." Margaret looked at her for several seconds. "Then, you have become very bold." Nia almost corrected her. She had not become anything. Margaret had simply discovered a part of her she had never bothered to see. Nia said, "What do you need?" Margaret held out an envelope. An amended acknowledgement. Nia did not take it. "Send it to Rachel. It removes the language your lawyer objected to." "Send it to Rachel." "Nia, this is absurd." "Maybe." "Do you have any idea what Andrew's position is worth?" "No." Margaret lowered her voice. "Exactly." Nia looked at her. Margaret realized the mistake. She continued anyway. "You came into this family with nothing." Nia did not move. "You lived in a rented apartment in Brooklyn." "Yes." "You were doing freelance communications work." "Yes." "You had student debt." "Yes." "We gave you a home." "Andrew and I married. My son gave you a home." Nia felt anger rise. She let it. But she did not give it the steering wheel. "You keep talking about marriage like I was hired." Margaret's expression hardened. "You benefited enormously." "So did Andrew." Margaret almost laughed. "From what?" That question could have hurt. Years earlier it would have. Now it simply sounded uninformed. Nia answered, "I raised his son while he traveled." Margaret looked away. "I hosted his clients." "That was social." "I relocated twice. For his work." "Exactly. I managed this house, with staff." "I handled school." Margaret said nothing. "Doctors, silence. Silence. Family events. Silence your foundation." Margaret's mouth tightened. Nia continued, "I translated 2 Montreal hotel briefs for Andrew in the first year we were married." Margaret looked sharply at her. Nia realized she had forgotten that. Not the translation. The fact that Margaret had never known who did it. Andrew had emailed Nia late at night, asking if she could clean up some French wording because a Canadian consultant had sent something awkward. Nia had rewritten both pages. Andrew had thanked her, then apparently forgotten. Margaret stared. You translated those? Yes. Andrew said his team handled them. Maybe they did after me. For the first time, Margaret looked genuinely disoriented. Not defeated. Disoriented. A piece of family history no longer fit, Nia said. I'm not listing these things because I won a prize. Then why? Because you asked what Andrew benefited from. Margaret stepped closer. This is about money. No, it always becomes money. No. Nia shook her head. This started because you thought I would sign without reading. Margaret's face changed. Barely. Enough. Nia knew she had landed on the truth. Not the whole truth, but the center of it. Margaret said, You were never supposed to hear that. I know. That conversation was private. It was about me. People are allowed to speak privately. Yes. Nia nodded. And people are allowed to read before signing. Margaret had no answer. Nia opened the door fully. Send the amendment to Rachel. Margaret left without seeing Micah. Not because Nia stopped her, because Margaret chose to go. On Monday, Daniel Cho received the award agreements. By Tuesday afternoon, he had built a timeline. Nia sat across from him and Rachel while a spreadsheet filled the conference room screen. For the first time in her life, Nia understood why lawyers sometimes loved spreadsheets. Grant date, vesting date, company event, compensation year, marriage date, employment period. The pattern was not dramatic. That made it more important. Andrew had received some family interests before the marriage. Some were clearly gifts. Others had been awarded during the marriage in connection with his executive role. The Class B participation interests appeared to be performance-based compensation. Daniel explained carefully. This does not mean you automatically own half. Nia nodded. I know. It means the blanket statement that all listed interests are obviously separate is not something I would accept without analysis. Okay. Rachel said, and that is exactly what the acknowledgement could have complicated. Nia looked at the screen. How much are the Class B interests worth? Daniel hesitated. We don't have a reliable current value. Roughly? Don't do that. She smiled faintly. Right, Rachel said. The number is not the point yet. What is? The disclosure. Nia looked at her. Rachel continued. You were being asked to sign a document that bundled very different types of property into one acknowledgement. And Andrew knew? We don't know what Andrew understood. Nia thought of his certainty. It would have been easy to make him omniscient, more satisfying, also probably false. Rachel said, We're requesting his counsel revise the document so the financing can proceed without asking you to characterize disputed marital rights. Can they do that? Probably. Nia laughed. Probably. Rachel smiled. Welcome to law. The revised document arrived Thursday. This time it was 9 pages. Not 23. No broad waiver. No statement that Nia claimed no beneficial interest. No representation about property classification. Only acknowledgement that certain pledged interests were subject to the financing, with explicit language preserving any rights either spouse might later assert in a matrimonial proceeding. Rachel read it twice. Daniel read it once, then twice. Rachel called opposing counsel with 2 wording changes. They agreed to one, compromised on the other. At 4:16 Friday afternoon, Rachel looked at Nia. I'm comfortable with this version. Nia stared at the signature line. The same name. Different document. What happens if I don't sign? Rachel shrugged. The financing may require another workaround. That's not what I asked. Rachel understood. You are not obligated to sign because I'm comfortable with it. Nia looked at the paper. Do you think signing hurts me? Not based on the version we negotiated. Do you think refusing helps me? Not necessarily. Nia breathed out. For the first time since the hallway, the choice was actually hers. Not sign because Andrew said so. Not refuse because she was angry. Read, ask, revise, understand. Choose, she signed. Rachel witnessed it. Nothing dramatic happened. No music, no applause. No family empire collapsed. The Quebec financing moved forward the next week. Andrew did not thank her. Nia did not expect him to. By then, they were sleeping in separate rooms. The marriage had moved into a strange interim period where nothing looked different from the street. Same townhouse, same school drop-offs, same staff, same names on invitations. Different bedrooms, different lawyers, different future. Andrew told Micah only that Daddy had a lot of work, and Mommy was sleeping in the guest room because he snored. Nia objected. You do snore. That's not the point. What do you want to tell him? The truth at his level. He's 5. I know. We don't even know what the truth is yet. I know we're separating. Andrew's face tightened. You decided that. Nia stared. You planned it. I was considering it, with counsel. So are you. After I heard you, they stopped. Micah was upstairs. Neither wanted him to hear. Andrew lowered his voice. Fine. He sat. What do we tell him? That was the first useful question Andrew had asked her in days. They agreed to speak with a child therapist first. Not because Micah was broken, because his parents were about to change the map of his life, and neither trusted instinct alone. Dr. Leah Sims met with Nia and Andrew without Micah. She asked one question at the beginning. Who has been doing what for him? Andrew answered, we both parent. Dr. Sims nodded. Show me. Andrew frowned. Nia understood. School mornings, Nia. Pediatrician, Nia. Dentist, Nia. Soccer registration, Nia. Weekend practice, both when Andrew was in town. Bedtime, mostly Nia. Travel permission. Nia organized, both signed. Parent-teacher meetings, Nia. Vacations, both. Financial support, Andrew. School tuition, Andrew. Housing, Andrew. Daily care, mostly Nia. The list was not an indictment. It was a map. Andrew became quieter as it grew. Nia did not enjoy that. She had no interest in proving he was not Micah's father. He loved his son. That was true. He had also built a life where someone else made most of fatherhood possible. That was true too. Dr. Sims said, children do not experience parenting as balance sheets. Andrew looked irritated. I didn't say they did. No. She nodded. I'm telling both of you before your lawyers turn this into one. Nia almost smiled. Dr. Sims continued. Whatever happens, continuity matters. So does meaningful time with both parents where safe and appropriate. Andrew asked, so what do you recommend? I recommend you stop discussing custody like possession. He looked at Nia. She looked back. Neither argued. Later that evening, Nia received an email from Rachel. Andrew's counsel has proposed temporary parenting terms. Please review when Micah is not nearby. No rush tonight. Nia waited until Micah slept, then opened it. The proposal gave the townhouse as Micah's primary residence. Andrew wanted alternating weeks after a 60-day transition. Nia read it twice. Her immediate reaction was no. Not legal no, body no. A week away from Micah felt impossible. Then she heard Rachel in her head. Do not turn one feeling into a fact. She made notes instead. Andrew travels how many nights monthly? Who handles school drop-off during his weeks? Would he reduce travel? What happens when he has an opening in Toronto? Who chooses caregivers? Can Micah stay near school? Can transitions happen after school instead of at a doorstep? What does Micah's therapist recommend? She sent the questions to Rachel. Rachel replied, "Good. We negotiate the real calendar, not the abstract one." The phrase stayed with Nia, the real calendar. For years, Andrew's family had lived inside abstractions. Family, legacy, support, stability. Nia was learning to ask what those words meant on Tuesday at 7:15 a.m. Andrew's real travel calendar showed an average of 11 nights away each month. Not 200 nights a year anymore. Still enough to matter. His first proposal assumed he would simply stop traveling during parenting weeks. Rachel asked for that commitment in writing. Andrew resisted. His lawyer said executive obligations could vary. Nia's lawyer said parenting obligations also varied. They negotiated. 3 nights, then 4. Then a structure where Andrew had 2 school night overnights each week, plus alternating weekends during the first 3 months, expanding only if his travel pattern actually changed, and Micah adjusted well. Andrew hated the word trial. Nia hated the word custody. Dr. Sims suggested temporary parenting schedule. Everyone survived. Margaret did not. "This is humiliating." She said it at lunch with Andrew. In French, Nia was not there. But Andrew told her later. That surprised Nia. He stood in the kitchen one evening while she packed Micah's lunch. "My mother thinks the parenting schedule is humiliating." Nia looked at him. "Why are you telling me?" "I don't know," he thought. "Maybe because she said it in French." Nia waited. Andrew continued. "She said you've made the family look weak. What did you say?" He looked embarrassed. "I told her it isn't a family transaction." Nia stopped slicing strawberries. That sentence was not enough to repair anything. But it was new. She nodded. "Good." Andrew leaned against the counter. "Nia, yes? Did you understand every single thing?" She knew what he meant. Over 8 years, every brunch, every aside, every hotel opening, every joke. She resumed slicing. "No." He looked relieved too quickly. Sometimes people spoke too fast. His relief disappeared. "Sometimes I wasn't listening." He nodded. "Sometimes I left the room." Silence. "And sometimes?" Nia placed the knife down. "Yes." Andrew's face tightened. "What was the worst thing I said?" She stared at him. He immediately regretted asking. Not because he feared the answer. Because he realized what kind of question it was. A request for Nia to curate his cruelty for him. She said, "I'm not doing that. I deserve to know." "No." He looked hurt. The irony almost made her angry. Nia continued, "You want one sentence." Andrew said nothing. "One worse thing you can apologize for. That isn't what I—" "It is." She shook her head. "There wasn't one sentence." He looked down. "That's the point." For once, Andrew did not defend himself. He left the kitchen quietly. The financial disclosure process continued. This time not because Nia secretly searched anything. Formal requests went through counsel, bank statements, tax returns, equity compensation, trust distributions, household accounts, business interests. Nia had to disclose too, her old contract income, savings, retirement account, a Montreal investment account with less money in it than Andrew spent on one client dinner. Everything that mattered. Verification was not something only the powerful owed. If Nia wanted the process to see Andrew clearly, it had to see her clearly too. 3 weeks later, Rachel called her into the office. Daniel was there. So was a forensic accountant named May Tan. Nia stared at the new person. How many professionals does one marriage need? May smiled. Depends how many entities it owns. Nia sat. May displayed a simple flow chart. Some family wealth was exactly what Andrew had said. Separate trusts. Premarital ownership. Family gifts. Not Nia's. Some executive compensation had been earned during the marriage, potentially relevant. Some assets required valuation. Normal. Then May pointed to a series of distributions. These are what I wanted to ask about. Nia looked. Quarterly amounts. Large, but not shocking by Vale standards. What are they? Trust distributions to Andrew. He told me those were family money. They may be. Then? May changed screens. They were deposited into a joint investment account for several years. Nia frowned. I didn't know we had that account. Rachel looked at her. You are listed as joint owner. Nia stared. What? May turned the screen slightly. There was her name, Nia Carter Vale. She recognized the signature from years earlier. A stack of account opening documents Andrew had brought home. Did I sign this? Yes. Nia stared at it. The irony was almost unbearable. Andrew had been right about one thing. She had signed things without reading closely, not because she was stupid, because she trusted the person explaining them. Rachel said, "This is why we don't make moral conclusions from signatures alone." Nia looked at her. What does the account mean? May answered, It means the tracing is more complicated. Does it mean I own half? No. Nia laughed once. Everyone here is deeply committed to disappointing television. Rachel smiled. Yes, May continued. It means some separate property distributions may have been commingled with jointly titled assets. And we analyze. There was that word again. Not victory, analysis. The offshore accounts Nia had feared after hearing the source story in her own mind did not exist. No Cayman conspiracy. No secret Swiss vault. No hidden crime. The truth was more ordinary. Andrew's finances were complex. He had understood them better than Nia. He had allowed that imbalance to continue because it was convenient. Then, while planning a separation, he had tried to preserve that advantage. That was bad enough. It did not need to become a thriller. The first mediation happened 6 weeks after Nia heard the French conversation. No ballroom, no audience. 7 people in 2 conference rooms. Nia, Rachel, Daniel for part of the day, Andrew, Marcus Hale, a neutral mediator named Susan Bell, coffee nobody drank, boxes of documents. A bowl of mints that became increasingly offensive as the day continued. Susan began, We are not here to decide which spouse is a better human being. Andrew almost smiled. Nia did not. We are here to identify what can be agreed, what cannot, and what information is still needed. They started with parenting, not money. That mattered to Nia. Andrew wanted more time. Nia wanted continuity. Neither wanted a court deciding every holiday. They argued over Thursdays, then Christmas, then summer, then Montreal. Andrew wanted to take Micah to Quebec for hotel openings. Nia said yes, with advance notice and no missing school beyond an agreed limit. Andrew expected her to refuse. She could see it. Susan could too. Mr. Vale? Andrew looked up. You seem surprised. He glanced toward Nia. I thought she would say no. Nia answered, You're his father. No one spoke. She continued, I don't want to win, Micah. Andrew looked down. That sentence changed the room. Not magically, but enough. By noon, they had a parenting framework. Not final. Good enough to keep working. Then money, the house, accounts, support, equity, trusts. Nia learned something uncomfortable. The law did not measure marriage the way emotion did. 8 years of humiliation did not become 8 additional percentage points. Margaret's insults did not create a separate asset class. Andrew's failure as a husband did not automatically make him lose property. The process was less poetic than revenge. Nia found that reassuring. She did not want poetry deciding Micah's future. The disputed growth interests remained difficult. Experts differed on classification and value. Rachel recommended settlement rather than spending years litigating every theory. Nia asked, "Would we win?" Rachel looked at her. "Win what?" "The argument." "Some of it, probably. And lose? Time, fees, privacy." Predictability, Nia thought. Andrew was in the next room, asking his lawyer the same questions in different words. Susan moved between them. Offer, counteroffer, house, cash, retirement, support equity. Another counteroffer. At 6:30, they were still nowhere near agreement. Nia was exhausted. Susan entered. "Andrew has proposed something new." Rachel read the page. Her face revealed nothing. She handed it to Nia. Andrew would retain all disputed participation interests. In exchange, a larger cash equalization payment. Nia would retain her retirement account. A defined period of spousal maintenance. They would sell the townhouse within 1 year unless one party bought out the other. Education costs for Micah would be shared under a detailed formula. No admission by either side regarding property classification. Nia stared. "Is it fair?" Rachel said. "That is not a yes or no question." Nia groaned. Rachel almost laughed. "Sorry." Daniel reviewed the numbers. May joined by phone. They modeled scenarios. High company growth, low growth, sale, no sale, taxes, liquidity, risk. By 8, Nia understood something she had not understood at breakfast 6 weeks earlier. A good settlement was not the version where she took everything from Andrew. It was the version she could understand before she signed it. She crossed out one sentence, raised one support term, changed the timeline for the house, requested a reserve for Micah's therapy if needed. Rachel sent the counteroffer. Andrew accepted 2 points, rejected one, modified another. At 9:42, Susan entered. "We have a framework." Nia looked at Rachel. Rachel did not smile. She asked, "Do you want to stop for tonight and review tomorrow?" Nia loved her for that. Nobody was rushing her anymore. Even with agreement close, even after 14 hours, Nia looked at the draft. "Tomorrow." Susan nodded. "Good." Andrew waited near the elevator when Nia left. His lawyers had already gone. He looked exhausted. So did she. For a moment, they stood in silence. Then Andrew said, "You could have finished tonight." "Yes." "You wanted Rachel to review again." "Yes." He looked at the elevator doors. "Good." Nia turned toward him. He did not look at her. "I mean it." The elevator arrived. They stepped inside. Andrew pressed lobby. Then, in French, he said quietly, "I should have known you would read it." Nia looked at him. He gave a tired half smile. Not charming, not strategic. "Just tired," she answered in French. "You should have wanted me to." The elevator descended. Andrew nodded once. That was the closest thing to an apology either of them could manage that night. The next morning, Nia read every page. Rachel read every page. Daniel reviewed the property sections. May checked the financial schedule. Nia asked 11 questions. 3 answers required revisions. They revised them. She read those again. Then she signed. Not page 7. Not a yellow tab Andrew had placed beside her coffee. A complete negotiated agreement she understood well enough to choose. The separation became public quietly. No press release. Vale Hospitality issued nothing. The foundation issued nothing. Andrew moved into an apartment 6 blocks away so Micah could keep the same school. Margaret hated the arrangement. That became less important every week. The first time Micah slept at Andrew's new apartment, Nia sat alone in the townhouse kitchen and cried, not because the arrangement was wrong, because an empty child's bedroom made every rational agreement feel irrational. She called Rachel, then stopped before the call connected. Rachel was her lawyer, not her emergency emotional infrastructure. Nia called her friend Tasha instead. Tasha arrived with Thai food and no legal opinions, exactly what Nia needed. "You know what I don't understand?" Tasha asked. "What? You speak fluent French and never told me." Nia stared. "I did tell you when Montreal. I thought you meant survival French." "I worked there 6 years." Tasha pointed a spring roll at her. "That is information you put in the headline." Nia laughed harder than she had in months. The laugh became a cry halfway through. Tasha moved closer. Neither pretended not to notice. 3 months later, Nia moved into a smaller apartment on the Upper West Side. Not glamorous, not a fall. 2 bedrooms, good light. Close enough to Micah's school that he could walk with her on mornings when he complained about scooters blocking the sidewalk. She restarted contract work slowly. Not because divorce transformed her into a founder. Not because Philippe Renault appeared with an international company. There was no Philippe. Nia emailed 3 former clients. One replied, then another. Her first project was editing bilingual guest communications for a Canadian hospitality group entering New York. The irony did not escape her. Her project manager asked during the kickoff call, "Your resume says Montreal. Are you comfortable reviewing the French version too?" Nia looked at the screen. "Yes, how comfortable?" Nia smiled. "Fluent, perfect." That was it. No room went silent. Nobody applauded. Her competence did not require an audience to become real. A month later, Andrew asked if they could have coffee after dropping Micah at school. Nia agreed. They sat at a cafe halfway between their apartments. Andrew looked older, not dramatically, just like a man who now handled his own Tuesday mornings. He stirred his coffee. "My mother wants to apologize." Nia looked at him. "For what?" He almost laughed. "Apparently she has a list. I'm not ready." I told her. "Thank you." He nodded. "Then, she keeps asking why you never told us." Nia knew what he meant. French. "Do you ask that too?" "Sometimes." "And?" Andrew looked out the window. "I think because if I make that the problem, then I don't have to think about what we said." Nia said nothing. That answer was better than she expected. Andrew continued, "I've been taking French lessons." Nia stared. He laughed. "Not because I forgot French. I was wondering, communication coaching. That sounds expensive." "It is good." He smiled briefly, then became serious. "Nia." "Yes?" "The financing would have happened without your original signature." She waited. "My lawyers found another structure." "Okay. I thought you might want to know." "I do." Andrew looked down. "So all that pressure was unnecessary." "Yes." Nia felt something settle, not satisfaction, confirmation. Urgency had been part of the leverage. The deadline had been real. The claim that only her immediate compliance could save the transaction had not been. Andrew said, "I should have told you to get counsel from the beginning." "Yes." "I should have told you what the document was." "Yes." "I should have told you about the separation before trying to close the financing." "Yes." He exhaled. "You make apologies difficult." "No." Nia shook her head. "I make them specific." He accepted that. Across the cafe, a couple argued quietly over a phone screen. A barista dropped a spoon. Someone laughed near the window. The world did not care that Andrew Vale was learning how to apologize to his former wife. That seemed healthy. He asked, "Do you hate me?" Nia thought. No. He looked surprised. That's worse somehow. It isn't. What do you feel? Nia looked down at her coffee. I don't trust you. Andrew nodded slowly. That makes sense. She looked at him. But Micah loves you. I love him. I know. And I want us to do that part well. Andrew's eyes lowered. So do I. That was enough for coffee. 6 months after the morning, Andrew placed the document beside her cup. Nia attended a school fundraiser. Andrew was there. So was Margaret. Micah was dressed as an astronaut because the kindergarten class had apparently decided formal wear was optional. Nia stood near the silent auction tables, helping another parent tape a sign back onto a display board. Margaret approached alone. Nia saw her coming. She did not leave. Margaret stopped several feet away. May I speak to you? For a minute. Margaret nodded. Her posture was perfect. Pearls, gray coat, every inch the woman Nia had once found impossible to challenge. She spoke English. I owe you an apology. Nia waited. Margaret continued. I said things about you that were cruel. Yes. I used a language I believed you couldn't understand. Yes. I treated that as permission. Nia looked at her. That sentence mattered. Margaret's voice became tighter. I also spoke about your background in ways that were… She stopped. Nia waited. Margaret tried again. Racist. There, no softer word, no cultural misunderstanding, no generation, no if you were offended. Nia nodded. Yes. Margaret's eyes shone slightly. She did not cry. Nia was grateful. I am sorry. Nia took a breath. Thank you for saying it. Margaret waited, perhaps expecting more. Forgiveness, release, a cleaner ending. Nia did not provide one. She said, I'm not ready to have a relationship with you outside Micah. Margaret looked hurt. That is fair. I need you to respect his relationship with both parents. I will. And no French around him as a way to exclude people. Margaret nodded immediately. Of course. Nia looked at her. You can speak French around him. Margaret seemed confused. Nia continued. I want him to learn. Margaret stared. French? Yes. You would allow me to teach him? Nia thought carefully. Not alone. Margaret's expression fell. Nia continued. But you can speak it with him when we're all together. Margaret nodded. That is more than fair. Micah ran toward them, holding a paper rocket. Grandma! Margaret bent down. He showed her the rocket. It was crooked. One wing larger than the other. Margaret told him it was beautiful. Nia almost corrected her, then decided some inaccuracies were harmless. Micah turned to Nia. Mommy, Grandma says bonjour means hello. Nia smiled. She's right. Margaret looked at her. Micah said, Do you know French? Nia looked down at her son. For years, French had been a secret inside her marriage. A shield, then evidence, then a source of conflict. She did not want it to become one more thing Micah inherited as tension. So she answered him in French. Oui. Très bien. His eyes widened. You know it too? Yes. Why didn't you tell me? Nia laughed. You never asked. Margaret covered a smile with one hand. Micah considered the injustice. Then, say rocket. Fusée. He repeated it badly. Nia corrected him. Margaret corrected both of them. Nia raised an eyebrow. Margaret immediately backed down. Your Montreal accent. There's nothing wrong with my Montreal accent. Micah laughed because adults disagreeing about accents was apparently the funniest thing he had ever heard. Andrew watched from across the room. He did not interrupt. Later, while Nia helped Micah into his coat, Andrew approached. "He looks happy." "He is." Andrew nodded toward Margaret. "That went better than I expected." It was 6 minutes. Still, Nia zipped Micah's coat. Andrew asked, "French lessons?" "For him. He'll be better than me by 8. That is a low bar." Andrew laughed. Micah grabbed both their hands. "Can we get pizza?" Nia looked at Andrew, his night, but it was early. Andrew said, "You're welcome to come." Nia considered, then shook her head. "You two go." Micah frowned. "Mommy, I'll see you tomorrow." He accepted it after a negotiation involving garlic knots. Andrew and Micah walked toward the exit. Nia watched them leave, then turned back toward the fundraiser. Nothing about her life looked like revenge. Andrew still had money. Vale Hospitality still existed. Margaret still wore pearls. The family financing had closed. The company had not collapsed. Nia had not exposed anyone on a stage. She had not needed to. The first important thing she did was much smaller. She refused to sign a document she did not understand. Then she asked for the missing page. Then the trust. Then the award agreements. Then the real calendar. Then the real accounts. Then the real parenting history. One question created another, and each answer removed a little of the power that depended on her remaining uninformed. People had assumed Nia's silence meant ignorance. It did not. But silence was not her victory either. The victory was knowing when silence had stopped protecting her. That night, she returned to her apartment. A bilingual hotel proposal was open on her laptop. English on the left, French on the right. Her client had highlighted a sentence. "Does this translation preserve the same meaning?" Nia read both versions. Not once, twice. The French wording implied a guarantee. The English promised only an estimate. Small difference. Potentially expensive. She typed a comment, "These are not equivalent. Confirm intended obligation before approval." Then she stopped. The sentence made her smile, not because it reminded her of Andrew, because it reminded her of herself. 8 months earlier, behind a closed door, 2 people had spoken freely because they were certain the woman outside could not understand them. They were wrong about the French, but their larger mistake was believing understanding was the same as consent. It was not. Nia closed the document. From the hallway came the sound of Micah returning early, talking loudly before Andrew even knocked. Nia opened the door. Micah rushed inside holding half a pizza box. "Mommy, Daddy says I can teach you French." Andrew stood behind him, looking deeply offended. "That is not what I said." Micah grinned. Nia looked at Andrew, then at her son. "In French," she said, "your father needs the practice more than I do." Micah laughed, even though he did not understand. Andrew did. This time, that was fine. 2 months later, Nia was on a video call with a hotel development team in Montreal. She sat at the small desk beside her apartment window. No marble office, no assistant, no dramatic new company with her name on the door. Just a laptop, a legal pad, cold coffee, and a client who had hired her because the work needed doing. 6 people were on screen. 3 in New York, 3 in Quebec. The meeting had started in English. Then one of the Montreal executives switched to French while explaining a dispute over a management fee clause. This time, nobody assumed anything. The project director looked at Nia. "Would you rather we stay in English?" Nia shook her head. "French is fine." The conversation continued. No one gasped. No one asked where she learned it. No one treated fluency like a magic trick. They simply worked. Halfway through the call, Nia stopped them. Wait! The French executive paused. Nia pulled up the latest agreement. You're using the word guaranteer. Yes, the English draft says projected. He frowned. That was not my understanding. Nia looked toward the New York lawyer. Was the French side supposed to guarantee the occupancy level or provide a forecast? The lawyer opened another document. Forecast. Nia turned back to the Montreal team. Then these versions do not say the same thing. Silence. Not shocked silence. Useful silence. The kind that came before people checked something. The lawyer compared the drafts. Another executive found the earlier email. 3 minutes later, they located the change. A translation vendor had strengthened the obligation while trying to make the French language sound more definitive. No one had intended it. No one had lied. It was still a problem. The project director said, "Good catch." Nia nodded. Let's make both versions say exactly what the parties intend before anyone signs. The meeting moved on. That sentence stayed with her. Before anyone signs. 8 months earlier, Andrew had placed a document beside her coffee and expected a signature because trust had become habit, because she had signed things before, because he believed she would not ask, because he believed there were conversations she could not understand. The French had mattered, but not in the way people would probably tell the story if they heard it. Nia had not won because she secretly spoke another language. Speaking French only allowed her to hear the problem. Everything important came afterward. She did not know whether the document was improper, so she asked a lawyer. The lawyer did not know what the missing schedule contained, so they requested it. The trust was complicated, so another professional reviewed it. The property classifications were uncertain, so they traced them. The parenting dispute was emotional, so they built the real calendar. The settlement was exhausting, so she read it again the next morning. At every step, the answer was not. Nia already knows. It was, Nia has the right to know before she agrees. That was different, and it was stronger. The Montreal meeting ended shortly before 6. Nia closed her laptop. From the living room, Micah called, "Mom, yes? Dad says my French is terrible." Andrew answered immediately from somewhere behind him. "I said your accent needs work." "That means terrible." Nia smiled. It was Andrew's evening, but he had brought Micah by to pick up the dinosaur book their son had forgotten. Nia walked into the living room. Micah stood beside the couch wearing one sneaker. Andrew held the missing book. "Tell him," Micah demanded. "Tell him what?" "That my French is good." Nia considered. "How do you say, 'Where is my other shoe?'" Micah's face went blank. Andrew laughed. Nia pointed toward the hallway. "Find the shoe first. International diplomacy later." Micah ran off. Andrew handed Nia the book. For a moment, they stood alone. Their relationship had become easier in some ways, harder in others. There were schedules now, boundaries, written agreements, less guessing, less access, more clarity. Andrew nodded toward her laptop. "Working?" "Yes." "French?" "Partly." He gave a small smile. "Of course." Nia looked at him. He caught himself. "No, I mean..." She waited. Andrew tried again. "That makes sense. Better." He nodded. Micah shouted from the hallway. "Found it." Andrew called back. "Put it on." Then he lowered his voice. "My mother started taking him to French story hour." Nia raised an eyebrow. "With your approval. And yours." "Yes. She asked me last week whether you'd mind if she bought him French books." "What did you say?" "I told her to ask you." Nia smiled slightly. "Look at you. I'm evolving. Slowly. Apparently, that's how real things happen. The sentence surprised both of them. Andrew looked away first. Micah returned wearing both shoes. Ready. Andrew opened the apartment door. Micah hugged Nia. Love you. Love you too. Then he stopped. Mom? Yes? Why didn't Dad know you spoke French? The room became very still. Andrew looked at Nia. He did not answer for her. That mattered. Nia crouched so she was level with Micah. Because sometimes grown-ups make assumptions. What's an assumption? It's when you think something is true before you've checked. Micah thought, like when Dad thought my shoe was under the couch. Andrew said, it usually is. Nia smiled. Exactly. Micah looked satisfied then. But you knew French, yes. And Dad didn't know you knew. No. Micah considered that. Did you trick him? Andrew looked uncomfortable. Nia did not rescue either of them from the question. She said, I stayed quiet about something I should probably have talked about sooner. Andrew looked at her. Nia continued, and your dad believed some things about me he should have asked instead of assuming. Micah looked between them. So both? Nia smiled. So both. That answer was not perfect. It was true enough for 5. Micah took Andrew's hand. They left. Nia closed the door. For years, she had imagined that being understood would feel like finally saying everything she had kept inside. It did not. Being understood turned out to involve something less dramatic. Being asked. Being shown the whole document. Being given time. Having the right to say, I don't know. Explain that. Send me the missing page. What does this actually mean? What happens if I say no? What happens if I say yes? Those questions had done more for Nia than any perfect speech ever could. She returned to her desk. The Montreal contract was still open. 1 English sentence, 1 French sentence, same obligation now, same meaning. Before closing the file, Nida read both versions one final time. Then she approved the draft. Not because someone placed a signature tab in front of her, not because the deadline was urgent, not because another person told her the document was routine, because she understood what it said. And because understanding gave her something the Vale family had once mistaken for obedience, the ability to choose. 8 months earlier, Andrew Vale had spoken behind a closed door in French because he believed his wife could not understand a single word. He had been wrong about the language. But the mistake that changed their lives was larger than that. He believed that because Nia trusted him, she did not need to know. He believed silence meant ignorance. He believed a signature meant understanding. None of those things were true. Nia had learned something too. Knowing what someone said was not enough. Hearing the truth did not automatically tell you what to do with it. You still had to verify. Ask, read, understand, and then decide. She closed the laptop. On the desk beside it sat the old copy of the first 23-page acknowledgement Andrew had given her. Rachel had told her months ago that she no longer needed it. Nia had kept it anyway, not as evidence. The case was settled, not as a trophy. There had been no victory worth displaying. She kept it because one yellow signature tab still marked page 7, a tiny piece of adhesive, a place someone had once expected her to sign without asking why. Nia removed the tab, dropped it into the trash, and kept the document. The words were no longer frightening. She had read them.